So I've been, reflecting on this time that I've spent working at in the produce department for the past 6, 7 months. I didn't imagine it would have lasted this long. It's been a longer season than I imagined initially. I was thinking 3 months, and I was on the brink of a pretty financially challenging situation when I found this job. And this is a much longer story that I'm not going to get into, but um, some ways it was a life raft thrown out to me that I found this when I did. And I've done videos on this idea of embodiment on the spiritual path. How do you live the truth in a world that is so crooked, distorted, confused? How do you heal through the experiences of daily life? How do you evolve in a healthy direction, not in a way that calluses you, jades you, makes you more jaded, makes you more cynical, defended, angry? What are the limits there of how much you can process? What is that threshold between potential for evolution and potential for devolution, I guess? When is a situation just too unhealthy? And so but there have been things that I don't think I would have insights. There have been insights and growth and certain experiences that have formed me or supported me in a sense that I don't know that I would have had without this job, or at least not so quickly. And a part of it is just the deep commitment that I have to healing. So part of it is the approach, a big part of it, and the mindset and things like that. In many ways, it's reaffirmed what I already knew. In some ways, that part has almost been surprising how well calibrated my system is in some ways for integrity, truth, etc. In some ways, there's an easy temptation towards cynicism here because I've seen just how normative and endemic confusion is, lack of integrity is, just sort of in the general population, or the general, the kind of ambient level is one way to say ambient level of confusion in I don't know how big I want to say this, in the country, in the world, in this little slice of the world where I'm at. I think it generalizes though. Just because I had been in such a deep retreat for so long, you sense it through videos and your just daily interactions, going out into the world, going, shopping or whatever. But working with people, up close and personal for a long time, day in and day out, full time, 5 days a week. You see it at a different level. Getting this phrase, Valley of Tears, I think it's a Catholic prayer during the Rosary, Salve Regina, I think. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. Oh, Hail, Holy Queen. Talking about this life that we live, this valley of tears, this vale of tears, I've heard it called, another translation, I think. Or the sea of samsara, the sea of suffering, the sea of confusion that we find ourselves in. But where my own confusion the rubber meets the road, so to speak, one thing I have noticed in a healthy direction, I think, is the ability to it feels like I've worked through some of my triggers. I don't want to overstate this. There's a way in which you overstate something and then God's like, oh, really? Let's see if you really... No, I don't want to overstate that at all, but I've let go. I'd gotten into such an OCD oppression, OCD enslavement, OCD ditch, with certain tendencies, especially for me around, feeling disrespected and needing to confront somebody and things like that. But being around people, what happens is you start to observe their habits, and you can see for a lot of people just their hostility or anger is part of how they approach people and how they approach the world. When you see it happening, not just to you, but you see it as a pattern that somebody does, there can be a little light that comes in there, a little space that comes in there, and the space communicates something to you, something like, don't take this so personal. Look, this is who this person is. You can also, and this is, I feel I'm speaking a little bit past my own evolution here, but you can also see with people who are very hostile, confused, disrespectful, you can, if you hang around and you pay attention, you can also find counterpoints to the mind, which wants to black and white everything and everybody. It wants to dichotomize everything. This all or nothing thinking, right? It wants to say this person is a total effing a-hole. That's just who they are. Now that may be a large percentage of who they are, but if you're willing to hang in there and just observe, you'll see that really, that person with total disregard, poor work ethic, hostility, whatever, you watch them be really kind to a child, that's coming through with one of the customers or one of the guests. Or you'll see, you'll see them hold the door open for somebody, or you'll just see little things that you start to pick up on that help to flesh out the picture a little bit and kind of break apart the mind's habitual reactivity that wants to, again, totally condemn or totally sanctify a person. Now, I work there's different departments, and the department I'm in, it's like we've got the department itself on the floor is kind of big, so you can kind of get in your own rhythm to some extent, your own groove, have a little bit of space. But the actual, the back area where we've got the pallets coming in, breaking down pallets, the refrigerated area, stocking things, taking stuff out to the floor. It's a fairly cramped quarters. And at this point, it's a fairly streamlined team. It's kind of a skeleton crew. So, I mean, there's a core of, I don't know, 10, 15 people. We kind of have two departments in one, but they're kind of each have their own, little area. I mean, the whole department would be probably 20, 25, maybe 30 people, but the half of the department that I'm in is smaller. I mean, when you break it up like that, both the halves are smaller. Anyways, now I hate gossip and shit talking. That hasn't changed. That's one of these things I feel I've calibrated pretty well. There's been little bits of like softening and like sanding off the edges with some of that, but that really has not changed for me. But what has changed is I've realized, because it's such a value for me, it's like there's this kind of crusader impulse in me about being anti-gossip and standing up and defending and deflecting, and some of that is good, when people come at you and try to put you in the middle of something. I've gotten better. Again, here's where I do not want to tempt God because this is a work in progress, but sometimes I'll be able to say, and it'll feel appropriate, I'll say, hey, don't put me in the middle of this, Or I'll say, talk to that person. Have you talked to them? Talk to them. In the past, I think I had tried to just kind of like, and sometimes this works too, is just don't really react, don't really say much, don't really engage, but don't feed it, but don't really say much. And yeah, I think sometimes that's good too. People can just pick up energetically, but sometimes when people are really ticked off and just sort of emotionally, psychologically out of control, and they're just trying to dump or project their stuff, sometimes in those moments I'll just say it more directly. Don't put me in the middle of this. I don't want to talk about this. Talk to them. Go talk to the supervisor. Stuff like that. But it just happens so often that's one of those things I've just had to let go. I can't imagine God wants me to continually be in a state of high stress, high confrontation, putting the whole world to rights. It's one of my frustrations actually with God and with this planet is like, don't give me excuse my language, don't give me a fucking moral sense and then put me in this land of moral degeneracy. That sounds really puritanical. I don't mean it that strongly, but something like that. It's like, why give me these values and put a sense of integrity in me and then just put me into this totally debauched, depraved, lost place? It's a recipe for total madness. So at some point I've just had to say, there's no way God needs me to hold on that tightly. I know it's true for me. I know I don't condone it or support it, but I know that I can't go around governing everything. And the more I've tried to do that, the harder my life gets, unfortunately. And the more blowback happens. And so I'm getting ear ringing right now. And so over time, you find that it's okay to kind of let go of certain things, and being in this position where, every day, a few times a day, multiple times a day, these values are coming up and getting triggered. It's kind of like a speed run through the minefield of your inner your triggers trying to think of another word for that. Of your own, the minefield of your own reactivity, I guess. It's also, I still think it's really wrong to gossip about people, especially when you're not willing to have a direct conversation. I think it shows, well, let me not get on my soapbox here, but I still think it's really wrong to do that. But I've seen it so often, and it's just so a part of how people communicate. So many people, the vast majority, especially where I work. But, this is just kind of a typical blue collar place. It's not like the worst, definitely not the worst. And I imagine, and I'm not naive. I mean, I've seen so much that I know it could be 10 times worse, actually, which is what's so crazy in certain other positions that are even less healthy environments. That I don't want to say I accept it. I mean, it is how it is. And I certainly don't endorse it. I certainly don't like it. I don't, doesn't, it's not right. I don't agree with it. But I'm less outraged in a sense. I'm less surprised by it for sure. It's more just like this. I don't know. I think it was Richard Rohr, Franciscan priest, author, in one of his speeches was talking about at some point you just have to forgive reality for being reality. It's like cosmic level of forgiveness. You just forgive the whole thing because it's so broken, so messed up here. So it's kind of like that. It's a feeling kind of like that. And it's also a feeling of just like, I can't really tune into all that, you know? Appropriate expectations, I guess. Something like that. Another interesting thing I've found is I've had a lot of dust ups with people because as much as I do let go of stuff, some stuff just some stuff I address. And the way I do it, I've been experimenting with this, having I prefer to just have an adult conversation. Can we do that? Can we just talk? This is what's up for me, you're coming across really harsh, and I'm really upset, or, there's all kinds of ways to skillfully do it. Most people can't do that. I can't always do it, but definitely put in a lot of effort in that direction. And seeing how healthy it is. Most people can't do it because they just haven't prioritized that, because it takes a certain amount of commitment, integrity. I don't know. It's hard to not sound judgmental when I talk about this, but let's just say most people cannot have that kind of a conversation. Some people can. Some people kind of can. And so there's different other ways to communicate. Sometimes just being more direct. The simpler, the better, typically. The more... But, yeah, let me not finish that thought. The more... So anyways, so I've had a few dust-ups with people, or just trying to communicate, trying to express what's going on for me, and find a way to, express my own humanity, my own desires, my own perspective, needs, Not that I have a lot. I mean, really, my whole goal is just let me fucking work. I have a good work ethic. I show up, I work, and I do a good job. I work hard. The less you get in my way, the better. Okay? Just let this guy work. I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be respectful, and I'm going to try to speak up when things go sideways. Sometimes, I mean, again, this is where I'm trying not to be too rigid or zealous in anything I'm saying here, because part of the healing journey for me in all this is letting go of some of that, softening in certain areas, cosmic forgiveness in certain areas, just letting stuff go. But some of these blow ups, what's been interesting is you have this blow up, and then the next day you're back in this small little space with this person. You gotta, in a sense, you gotta make it work. You know, because it's your livelihood, and I feel for the most part there's been definitely things that I haven't done too well, and I've tried to document some of that. But in many of these cases, I haven't done the worst job, and sometimes I think I've even done a pretty decent job. And so I don't, the day after the blow up, I don't feel huge aversion. I don't feel huge apprehension. A little bit, of course, because you're on guard if this person's gonna, you know, do whatever again. But when your commitment is when your commitment is just to work, basically, when you're simple that way, and you're just trying to clear out the obstacles for you having a decent work day, you're not trying to dominate people, you're not trying to win people, you're not trying to trying to think of a good word here. It's not like a tribal mentality of like getting, or a gang type mentality of getting people on your side. No, I don't really care about any of that, really. I mean, to the extent that it impacts my own well-being, then yeah, it matters. But my goal there is just to do the job. It's as simple as that. And over time, other people who initially feel very, you try to talk to them and express something, and they take it and they feel very attacked, even if you're very skillful. And they see that you're not playing into those games, that your goal is just to work, and that you're being, consistent. They see that consistency. And it doesn't happen overnight, but I had this early on. I had this blow up with this guy, a pretty big one. I did a video about this a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty intense. Got in my face at one point, and I felt I handled it pretty well, actually. I don't want to get into that, but stood my ground definitely, and handled it pretty skillfully in a pretty intense interaction, confrontation, whatever, blow up. And he was definitely pissed for a while after that, but I just didn't feed into it. It just wasn't something I cared about, really. You want people to be kind, but here's another benefit of working a job like this. People are just who they are. They're not, most of them aren't Satan. I'm being a little bit mischievous here. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but most of them aren't totally evil psychopaths. Some are, you kind of wonder, but most of them aren't saints either. It's just kind of humanity. But when you work day in and day out, over time, and you just try not to be too reactive, you speak up if you need to, as best as you can, but you don't keep feeding into that dynamic. What happens is, over time, the air clears and things diffuse. And sometimes you don't even get to the blow up. So, something happens, a boundaries trespass, and you've gotten better at letting stuff go. At night you can come home and you can clear it and you can heal and shake it out and cry and rage and let some of that stuff go. Um, in the case of it just being a person having a bad day or something. And so having that day in and day out kind of consistency, it sands off some of the edges and you get to the other side of a conflict. Now, who knows what's going to happen with, I hesitate to be too specific because, again, life always, always, always wants to catch you in your confidence and undermine it. And it's a really frustrating game that life plays. So I'm careful when I talk not to come across as overly confident or cocky or final on anything. Anything could fucking happen tomorrow. But I will say with this guy, we seem to have a pretty good relationship now after, that blow up. Well, I don't even know if I want to say it that firmly because, again, God's going to try to undermine that, me saying it. Can't think of the right word for that. Like jinxing yourself or something. But since then, yeah, it's over time, start talking again, and there's more kindness, more respect, and that's a good thing. Had there just been, in other words, had there just been a blow up and then go their separate ways, it just would have been a permanent enemy, If we ever saw each other again, it would have been hostility. But so you have time to kind of work through things, let the air clear on things. And as long as you just stay in your lane and stay consistent and you're not trying to fuck with people and you're not taking the bait as best as you can, all you're doing is, defending your little area of your own well-being and just staying on the grind, staying working, So that's been a good thing to learn. I had a blow up with the boss. Oh, I didn't. He got really pissed off about something. I didn't feed into it. I didn't chase after him. I just stayed in my lane. But 2 or 3 days later, at the end of the work day, just kind of letting him be, not chasing after it, he came up to me and at the end of the shift and said goodbye, something he rarely does, dapped me up. We had a little bit of an exchange. The other thing that's really frustrating about this world, I wish it wasn't this way and I try to live this, is just fucking apologize to people when you mess up. And I do that. I do try to do that. And I do that. I do tell people I apologize. But you can't expect it from people. I'm trying to think of the amount of times somebody's actually apologized to me in my life, unsolicited, sometimes in the context of a conversation when I'm expressing myself and saying, this really hurt, and coming from an authentic place. Sometimes then an apology will come, but somebody just coming up after the fact, having reflected on their actions, saying, hey, I want to apologize, I didn't get that right. Sheesh. I can think of, honestly, one time in my life that's happened to me, that somebody's done that, and it was in high school. And it's bringing up some emotions for me even thinking about it, but it was this, I had a really tough time in high school for a number of reasons, but there was this girl, which makes it even more remarkable because it seems like, no offense ladies, but it seems like sometimes women have an even harder time being accountable or apologizing to men for some reason. I haven't fully fleshed that out, I've just noticed that, but in middle school, I I was a smart kid. Actually played sports too, so I wasn't just like a nerd or something, but I was always in gifted the gifted program and top percentage with testing and all that stuff. But I was also kind of a clown. You know, you look back at all that and you have grace for yourself, and you see, you know, there's other psychological things going on there why somebody would be kind of a class clown. But some of it, I don't want to pathologize too much. I mean, I was just kind of a funny kid, and my best friend at the time, he was also, you know, in a lot of these gifted and advanced placement. I don't know. I forget all the names. Anyways, also a smart kid. I think I was smarter. Sorry. Anyways, but we were in those classes together, and there was this girl that we both liked. And at that age, looking back, that it was just so innocent. It wasn't like, you know, once you get into high school, things start to get a little bit more, you know, more hormones on the scene and more, I guess, sexualized, more debauched, more graphic, more vulgar. It wasn't really like that at this point, sixth grade, seventh grade. There's still some kind of innocent to it, and we were always kind of, you know, joking with her, and I guess we were kind of competitive over her to some extent. I don't know. I can't remember all the dynamics here, but she was cute and she was smart, and and I just remember doing stupid things. You know, you express yourself in a funny way at that age. Not, I don't think it was ever. It certainly wasn't malicious. I think it was us just trying to be witty and funny, and at least from my perspective, and I get the sense that's how it was for both of us. But anyways, um, joking with her and kind of just being goofballs and annoying her is one way to put it. And the interactions were funny because she kind of gave it back as much as she got it, and I really enjoyed it, and thought there was something kind of sweet about it. But anyways, towards the end of high school, I had really kind of gone, I guess, in a bad direction emotionally. I was really kind of isolated and certain things. Um, but I mean, I was just worlds apart from where I was then. And I hadn't interacted with this girl much in the intervening years throughout high school, little bits here and there, but it was more of a mature kind of interaction. It wasn't, you know, the annoying mid-school flirtation type of thing. It was, you know, to the extent that there was any interaction, it was just kind of, I guess, a little bit more straightforward, mature. But she came up to, I guess I found out later, to this friend of mine as well. She found me once. I was in the library, or she asked to meet in the library. I can't really remember how it happened. And apologized to me. And in a way that was really humble, really sincere. And I was in such a kind of confused place. It was really hard for me to hear it. I sort of regret that. I mean, I don't feel bad because that's just where I was at, but I appreciate it more now probably than I did then. It made me feel kind of like vulnerable and weird, and it's kind of awkward, and I don't think, you know, ideally I wish I was in a better place and really kind of put her at ease, and, you know, because I certainly didn't have any lingering bad feelings. I guess she felt like she was really um, rude or harsh, and, you know, I think she was saying, like, looking back, she was flattered, and or I don't remember how she said it, but she knows that we were coming from a good place, and or talking to me that she knew I was coming from a good place, and she apologized. You know, if she, I don't know if she said the word bitch, but something like that. If she was a bitch, or if she was rude or harsh or caused harm, or I don't know. It's been so long, I can't really remember, but is a pretty remarkable thing. And it's really the only kind of unsolicited apology I can really remember getting. Maybe there have been others, but it's exceptionally rare. And I look back at that and I think, man, what a mature, I don't know what was going on in her life, but that's a high character thing to do. Very high character. And it's something that I try to do. I certainly, and it's something that I do. I've reached out to people from the past sometimes, and certainly in more like contemporary, just day to day type of things. Being willing to apologize is not a bad thing. But you can't expect it. What will happen, and it's like the best that people can do, I think. I mean, again, I hate to say that kind of thing and let people off the hook, because no, we got to be accountable to each other, but you will die holding your breath waiting for somebody to be accountable. But what they will do is just come up like this boss did with me after a few days and just, say, hey, I'm clocking out. Nice to see you. Dap you up and, have a little talk about football. That's what we talked about. And it's the same. It's not the same, but it's like, that's the best. Again, it's hard for me to say that's the best he can do, because I know people can do better if they want to. But that's about what it looks like usually for people. Is they're not going to say, hey, I really messed up. They're going to come up and just talk and try to start anew, or, And so in those moments, what do you do? Do you say, oh, you're not mad at me? Can we talk? You're not going to apologize? That is an option. That's certainly an option, but this world is disappointing. The people in it are disappointments. They let you down. People are not reliable. I myself let myself down. I'm a disappointment too. But so you kind of just have to, I guess, read between the lines, or I don't know. For the biggest move, the most fundamental move you can make is don't put your value or your worth as best as you can. Don't put it in other people, because it's going to be a very unstable. You're still going to do it because we're social creatures. Now, people who take the total sort of dogmatic, rigid, ideological extreme in the other direction of nobody can, I don't care about anybody. Or let's see, what would somebody say? I can't even really articulate it, but something like, I'll never allow anybody to affect me. Nobody else has any control over my emotions. You can kind of understand why somebody would say that, but no, we're social creatures, and even in a very healed heart, you're still going to be impacted by other people. It still is going to suck. Somebody's unkind or rude, doesn't see you as you are, projects bullshit onto you. That's part of what hurts in all this stuff, is like these people just aren't seeing me, that I'm not this. That's part of what hurts, is people don't see you and your kindness and your goodness and your lack of complexity, your lack of, people ascribe all kinds of motivations to your actions, especially if you're not really social and outgoing and talkative, and people just project bullshit, and it's frustrating, and it's always going to be on some level. The goal is not to become like an untouchable, unassailable, like in a totally walled off fortress or something, emotional fortress. No, it's not like that. But the more you heal, the more you can kind of just not. What? I don't. Again, I don't know. Hopefully I've said something useful here. You don't want your emotions, for sure, you don't want them totally tied to everybody else's reactions, but um, you learn to be gentle with yourself and to heal and to part of it is just not get involved with a lot of other people. Be comfortable with your own company. That's a big gift that you can give yourself, and part of the healing path can open that dimension up is a greater and greater comfort with your own company and fulfillment and satisfaction there. And you build there, and that satisfaction creates kind of a buffer. It gives you more resources where you're not externally looking as hard for validation. Not that it doesn't still bother you on some level, because it does, but and a lot of people that will say too glibly, don't take it personally, bro. Don't let that bother you. Um, oh, I don't let anybody bother me. You know, a lot of times what's going on there is there's a they're stuffing their emotions, and don't we all see this in our own lives? Numbing out through social media, through food, through drugs, through porn, through work, through relationships, all the different ways that we addict and deflect these emotions. It's okay to acknowledge that somebody hurts you, their actions or whatever. Doesn't make it's not a sign of weakness. I mean, that's just part of the human experience. All right. See if there's anything else here. 49ers are about to play. I'm not even sure what I just talked about. I'm like trying to review what did I just talk about. I'm not sure what I just talked about. Oh, okay. Yeah, just things that have showed up for me in the course of working these past 6, 7 months at this place. Yeah, maybe that's a good place to end. There's more to say about how you're. Well, I'm just going to leave it there. Take care.